Hey there, everyone. Jason here. I'm going to double check to make sure we are showing up live. Don't want you to miss this great guest. I'm really looking forward to interviewing her. We met a few years ago, and so it should be fun to put her through the ringer on the show. Looks like we are good to go live there. So, hey there. I'm Jason Logston, and this is Makin Bacon. We're all about helping you serve your fans, grow your income, and get the most out of your blog. Today's episode is brought to you by my very own Self-Publishing 101, How to Publish a Printed Cookbook on Amazon using KDP. You can check it out at makethatbacon.com/publish now. And the average home cook owns almost 50 times more printed cookbooks than PDF cookbooks. But most bloggers just put out a downloadable PDF. So why are you limiting yourself? With the advent of print-on-demand companies like Amazon KDP and Ingram Spark, it's now easier than ever to become your own publisher. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can waste not only your time, but also your money. That's where my video course comes in, stepping you through the entire self-publishing process. Again, you can check that out at makethatbacon.com/publish now. And remember, you can join us live every Thursday when we record these episodes. You can ask the guests questions, talk to the other bloggers in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So join us Thursdays at makethatbacon.com/live or search for Makin Bacon on your favorite podcast platform. Now, on to the show. As bloggers, growing our traffic is often a top priority. But what is the most efficient way to accomplish that? And how do we make time for all the work required? Today's guest is the perfect person to help us figure it all out. She is the founder of Cook the Story and The Cookful, where her passion is to create recipes that take less time in the kitchen, giving you more time at the table. What originally started as a hobby has turned into one of the top-ranked food blogs in the world, with more than 2 million monthly readers. So I can't wait to learn from today's guest, Christine Pittman. Christine, welcome to Makin Bacon.
Hey, Jason. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, too. We first met at IFBC in, I believe that was the Alaska IFBC, right?
It was, yeah. What a great conference.
I know they have one of their virtual summits going on right now, which I've been enjoying, but not nearly as much as the beer tasting on top of the glacier and all the other fun, having a nice lunch overlooking the bay in Juneau. Some good times there.
Yeah, I loved that conference. Alaska is amazing. IFBC is amazing. So great.
So I can't wait to dive into growing your blog because you've done some amazing things there. But before we get started, I always like to ask, what is it like around your dinner table on a typical day?
So typical is different this year than other years. So we've stopped.
Whatever for.
I know. We've stopped eating around the dinner table, honestly. I'm homeschooling the kids. And my boyfriend is a college professor and he is here teaching all the time. And we are together a lot and we talk a lot. We go on walks. And so TV has become time to watch Avatar and Korra. And we're doing that. So not talking at dinner right now. I think we'll go back to the dinner table once we're not spending as much time together. But that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, it was interesting having, my wife, especially this time of year, normally works 10 to 15-hour days because she's the news director of CBS Sports. So with March Madness coming up in football. And so I'm used to being like, oh, you're home. Like, let's spend as much time as we can together. And this year it's like, yeah, let's just go watch some TV. We've been together for last 15 hours. And even if we're not hanging out, like she's on calls and I can listen to her. I'm doing interviews. She can listen to me. We're like, we've got enough from each other and we've heard all the important conversations you've had today. So let's just go relax.
Exactly. And that's what it is.
So 2 million page views a month. That's quite impressive. How did you go about approaching building your blog to a size like that?
Okay. Well, I'm going to say, I'm very excited to say that it was 2.5 million this December we hit for the first time. So that was super exciting. We're back to around 2 million again now as we go into slower season. I started Cook the Story just as a hobby. I moved to the States from Canada and I didn't have a work permit to work here. My then husband did, and I had a new baby and I started the blog just to stay connected with family and friends back home over food. And then when I became able to work and earn income in the US, I already had some of the content. And I think what was interesting was that because it didn't start as a business and just started as this hobby, there was just a lot of like passion and detail and not a lot of thought into what the content was. It was what I was making and what we're doing. And then I went to one of the blogging concentrated workshops. I don't know if they still do them, but there was a 1-day session that I went to, and they got me thinking about looking at my analytics, what was doing well, and doing more of the stuff that was doing well, which seems obvious, but like I had my top post at the time was like how to cook fish from frozen. And I was delighted by that, but I'd never done any other like from frozen. Why not? So now how to cook fish from frozen, how to cook shrimp from frozen, how to cook steak from frozen, how to cook all these things are now doing super great on the site, you know? And so it was really that. And then
I feel like that's like a huge shift, right? A lot of people do get started doing this as a hobby, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute. If I am going to focus on this, how do I approach trying to figure out what to write about? And that's a great way, looking at your top posts, looking at what is working. As like you said, it seems like no duh, but it is something that you don't think of until you're trying to make that mindset shift.
Yeah, and also like in that sort of like we think about it as a editorial calendar, which I don't think I had anything remotely like that then. Then I was shooting what we were making, what I was having, and to instead be like, okay, I need to figure out these specific frozen chicken recipes, or I need to figure out, I do a lot of roast pork does really well on my site, like those things. And I feel like there's something like odd about it sometimes. I'm not necessarily always cooking the stuff that I love. It's like Google is telling me what to do. But I feel like it also serves my readers. That's what people are coming to my site for. So why not give them what they're coming to my site for, you know?
That was a big transition for me because I've done a lot of cookbooks, and it was the same type of thing. My first cookbooks were for a market that was me, basically. And then it evolved into, I have a lot more fans that are looking for different things. And I have to keep reminding myself the content I'm putting out is not for me anymore. This is a business. I'm putting it out for my fans, for clients, for the people that are consuming it. And that is a huge mindset shift. And so, yeah, Google might tell you to do stuff, and that's okay because that's who you're doing it for, the people coming from Google or Pinterest or wherever you're trying to attract readers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it feels not anymore, but it felt disingenuous to me when I thought about it in terms of like, okay, why am I teaching people how to cook chicken breast from frozen? I don't do that. But it doesn't seem disingenuous to me when I think about like my roast pork post is very detailed with all these steps. I don't need those steps. Those aren't for me. I know how to do this, right? So it doesn't feel weird to write for my readers when it's like a how-to or like the basics or something, but it feels weird when it's determining what the content should be. And I've just let go of feeling strange about that. Like that's just, we do what people want. People ask me questions. Sometimes I get emails, they want specific things, or I'm looking at my analytics or Pinterest stats to figure that out. And I think it's great.
And I think it does feel weird trying to describe things that you aren't like an expert in necessarily, but it's also, I am more of an expert at cooking than the majority of people I know. And so I will get random emails from friends that say like, I do all sous vide cooking, but they'll be like, hey, I was going to do a braise or like a slow cooker recipe. Like, what do you think about this? And I was like, I think that's the wrong cut of meat for that because it's not going to, function really well in it. And I'm not an expert in slow cooking, but I knew more than them, and I described it to them. I didn't write back and say like, I do sous vide, right? I'm not going to help you with this problem you have. Like I dove in and I went out of my comfort zone and explained it because that's what the person I was writing for really needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, answering those questions. And like, I think so that I'm giving this frozen chicken breast example, but really diving into that, the research that I did, that the average person, when you get home from work on Monday and realize that you didn't take the chicken breast out of the freezer and you're sitting with the frozen chicken breast on your lap while you Google for this, you do not have time to check, is this safe? Like, is my chicken cooked from frozen going to be safe? You don't have time to look into, okay, how much longer do I need to do it? Like all that, I've done all that. I've done that research because I have that expertise. And then that person gets that information much more quickly and easily. And that's what we're here for.
I like that point that you have time to do research on a lot of subjects. And so that you can put together a really good answer when the people that need that answer, they don't have time to do that research and they don't want to do it. They want the answer right there. If you can provide it, it's a great way to start having that long-term relationship. How else do you find content that is worth writing? You said you looked at some of your top posts and you tried to see what worked around those. What other ways do you look at trying to find some new things to cover?
Yeah, it can be inspired by where I'm heading in different parts of the business. So I have a podcast now called Time Management Insider, where we're talking about time management starting inside the home. So it's a lot of meal prep, meal planning, grocery shopping, but laundry and just house tasks and things like that. And I realized that my site, as much as I talk about quick home cooking, didn't have a lot of the sort of one pan, one pot sort of things. And so I wanted to help people more with their meal planning and that. So noticing a gap, like what is my site supposed to be giving people? What do I claim that it's giving people? And now I'm just talking about frozen chicken breast and roast pork. What happened? Like so while I'm trying to follow the stats and where that's leading me, I'm also always looking for gaps and holes that seem like a natural next and possibly next avenue, right? Like one of those could become popular and then suddenly there's a whole branch off of that, right?
That makes sense. You have the things that are really trying to allow your site to be discovered from people that are out there. And then you have those things that, like, when they land there and they're like, oh, I really like this type of content, you are actually providing more content that they would want to consume and to continue to build that relationship, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when they come, they're not just seeing the content that was directed by the stats. I mean, they can't tell, but it might seem biased in one direction. There's other things interspersed in there that make sense for the topic.
What sort of analytics do you use when you talk about the stats or Google telling you? What do you actually look at to try to figure out what to write about from that aspect?
I'm mostly just in Google Analytics, and I just double checked my stats today before we talked to make sure. It's 85% of my traffic is from Google, 2% from Pinterest. So everybody's food blog is different. I know that is not everybody's stats. I can tell that's probably because I don't like social media. And so whenever I try to do something on social, I don't get very excited about it and it dwindles. It's probably me. But I'm mostly looking at Google Analytics and I'm looking at top performing posts. I'm tracking mostly manually. I have tried so many things and they don't work for me in the same way. But making note of things that I'm noticing in my top 50 that weren't there before, and kind of paying attention, like, oh, why is this how to brine post suddenly rising up? What's going on? And trying to figure out, okay, can I do more brining related things? What else is related to there? But yeah, I'm looking in Google Analytics and I'm tracking fairly manually at this point what is rising up into the top as possible avenues to pursue.
I am in the same boat as I think Pinterest is about 2% of my traffic. So it's nice that you have a large audience and I don't have to feel bad about not having a good Pinterest presence. So thank you for that.
Anything I can do to help, Jason.
We all need a little ego boost every once in a while these days. So I appreciate that being mine.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important. This is something that when I started my first food blog, Cook the Story, in 2010, maybe even 2009 under a different name. I can't even remember. But I feel like I spent a lot of time chasing what other bloggers were doing, and I was in various groups and I was going to conferences and all of that is super valuable. And I don't want to say that it isn't, but I wasn't paying enough attention to what was working for me. I was saying, oh, this person says Facebook is the thing to go and you have to do it this way. And this person says, and so I was doing like 20 different things, all like trying to do what other people were doing. And at some point that wait, what is working on my site and how can I do more of that? And Google loves me for some reason on certain topics. I've had ups and downs with some of the algorithms. It's been an up since May. So yay. Yeah, just trying to learn from others when it's there, but not feel like if I'm not doing what they're doing, that I'm somehow failing. Like that pressure and that it's chasing the wrong things.
I always find it interesting too, now that I know a lot more about blogging, going to conferences and you talk to the experts, and it is like the YouTube expert normally isn't very good at SEO or Pinterest. And, the podcast expert normally isn't very good at YouTube, and everyone has their own specialty that they're great in. And that's why they're speaking on it as an expert, but almost no one does all of it at the same time.
Yeah, no, there's too many different things. And I mean, some of it we're just not good at, but some of it we don't like. I mean, have you read, or do you know The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks? Do you know that book?
Yes, it's been a little bit, but yes.
Yeah, it's older. It's just one of my favorites. He talks about the zone of incompetence, zone of competence, zone of excellence, zone of genius, and staying in those things. And I think about that all the time. Like, oh, people are saying that I should be doing this thing on Facebook. That is my zone of incompetence. I am not going to do that. I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to be good at it. Like, don't do this.
Yeah, it's definitely like those bottom ones are easy to weed out. And then you get to those that like, I'm pretty good at this, but I really don't like it. And I'm not excellent at it. And then I find myself stuck in those areas a lot.
Yeah, it's true. I do too. I mean, I have a team now of several people, and so I can hand off some of that sometimes. But there's that like, but I can do it. I can do it myself. So why would I hire someone or give it to somebody else or stop doing it or something, you know?
How did you approach building out a team? A lot of people are talking about this lately, and you even brought it up before the show that it's something that there's a lot of interest in about trying to outsource some of this work to do more, and that we're always trying to do more without spending more time, if that makes sense. So when did you say like I need help, and how did you go about that?
So it was early on, I guess, in my blogging career. I started making like a tiny bit of money. A lot of it was coming in through sponsored posts, probably in 2013. And what was happening was I was finding that to keep up with the sponsored post schedule, I wasn't having time to do the non-sponsored posts. And I didn't like how that was looking on my site. And it was this really random, my kid's babysitter was awesome and was interested in food and what I was doing. And she was looking for a summer job. And I was like, would you like to edit pictures for me? And she would come over every day for 5 hours. She was editing pictures. She was putting together blog posts, and I was cooking. And so we started this system, and it became fairly natural from there that I knew how much time I had and how much I wanted to do. And I guess I was, from around then, investing about 50% of what I was making in hiring people. So if I start making more money and I start getting stressed out, then okay, wait, where can I go with this? And letting go of some of that, I can do this myself, or only I can do this. Only I could take these pictures. Only I could develop these recipes. You know, that sort of getting rid of that has been a huge part of it.
I like it. It makes it a lot easier when you do have some kind of money coming in, and not just for that you have money to spend, but also like from your standpoint, like looking at it, you were frustrated because you were spending more time than you wanted. You weren't getting as much done with the sponsored posts. Yeah. And one option is not to do sponsored posts and get paid. And that is, no one wants that option. So looking at it, I think as Emily Perrin said, once you start having to leave opportunities on the table that you can't do this anymore, that's really when you need to start hiring someone, because that allowed you to do that sponsored post work and get paid and move your blog forward without having to worry about the other things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't want to turn away opportunities that sound good to me that I want to do. And so how do I, how do you do it? You can't do it all. And you know, I don't know where people are at. I guess everybody's in a different place, but there was a phase around then where I really was working, 10-hour days. Anytime my kids were napping or playing, or we were having the babysitter that I was talking about, she was here during the day on the weekends, so that my husband was writing, he's not my ex-husband, but whatever. He was writing books for tech stuff, and I was trying to do my blog stuff. We're spending the weekends working, and we're hiring a babysitter to come in. Like, this is not what we want at all. And, now I work long hours still, but I'm much more relaxed in it. The stuff that needs to get done is getting done,
How do you go about finding employees when they're not, once you no longer needed babysitters to lean on?
That has actually been a huge challenge. I've been very, very fortunate. I had, Heather McCurdy. I don't know if you know her. She's a blogger. And I was doing a mastermind with, Casey Benedict from Kitchen Play, and Heather works with her, and she started doing some copy editing for me. And then she kind of was like, maybe we should organize this a little better, Christine. Maybe we should organize this a little bit better, Christine. And she ended up coming on as my business manager. And so that was, I feel very fortunate. And then I've been very lucky. One of my close friends just was unemployed as a hairdresser, was having a lot of pain. And I was like, you can do a few things for me. She's turned into this amazing resource. She's so competent is not the right word, just wonderful. I've found bloggers. I've just hired a new VA who's also a blogger locally. And where else? The content contributors, like the contributors on the Cookful, my second site, those are all bloggers. And then I have some ghostwriting happening on Cook the Story. Those are not bloggers. They're the food industry. They're food photographers and writers.
How do you work with someone that's doing like content creation for you? Is that on a per post basis? Is that on a hours per week? What's a good way to structure that if someone's interested in outsourcing some of their content?
Yeah, I'm doing it on a per post basis. And it's a little bit different depending on how long they've been working with me and different things. But it's around 250 to 500 a post, depending on what it is and what's involved and how many pictures and that sort of thing. So I can tell you, I at one point went through and figured out what number or percentage of my posts end up making money eventually. So, I know what my ad revenue is and I know how much I make per 1,000 visitors. And at what point is there like a break even, and how many, it's like 1 in 6 or 1 in 8 eventually make $300 in X amount of time. And that was how I figured out what that was worth for me. So there's like a formula in my head somewhere that did that. But yeah, per post basis. And then we're just trying something new on the Cookful this year. So that website is topic based. We take on a topic like chicken thighs or basil or shepherd's pie, and we just do recipes and information on that topic for about a month. And that has all been sort of piece by piece blog post by contributors. But we this year have my dad doing a whole series on sausage making himself. He is a sausage expert. Awesome. And we have Emily Pastor from West of the Loop, who's a cookbook author, doing a whole series on lamb. So, and then Jill Silverman Huff is doing a whole series on salmon. And so instead of doing the by post, this was done more as you're going to do, 10, 15 posts on this one topic and kind of like a bulk rate for that whole series. A little bit more. These are very, I feel like really expert people in their niche that they're doing. So that's been a bit different.
I like that analytical way of looking at it. That makes it a lot clearer. And that's something that a lot of people are worried about spending money. But if you can look at your analytics and you can look at your ad revenue or however you're monetizing your blog and say, you don't, like you said, you don't want to say like, how much do my top posts bring in? That's what I could spend on a post, because that is you need to average across your post to get a good feel for all the ones that don't hit. And then say like, okay, if I bring in on average, $250 a post or $300 a post, I can afford to pay someone $250 because I will just be making $50 per post, even though money's going out.
Yeah, and figuring out that time frame too. Like I can't remember exactly how I figured it out, but it was like which posts over the first 2 years of being on the site, because I don't know if this is normal for everybody's food blog, but some things for me, it's a long time before they start to get traction, depending on what the topic is. So it'll be a while down. So kind of looking like how many posts will make $500 after 3 years or something, and then using that calculation. Yeah.
And I feel like with SEO, some things don't even show up for 3 to 4 or 5 months anyway. So you can't be like, well, what does it make in the first 6 months? It's like you have 1 month of revenue there for the post and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to look at a long term and like I said, kind of averaging it out and figuring that out. That's what's worked for me. And then I feel good about it. I feel like this is something I can afford, and I feel like the people who've been doing it for me feel like it's fair. I think that this isn't a sponsored post. These aren't sponsored. So there's no commitment for them after. They do the recipe, take the pictures, submit it, and it's done. They don't have to share it anywhere. They don't have to mention it. They don't have to upkeep anything on it. So I think that's why they like doing it.
And probably I know that I've been talking to several people right now that feel like they're in a creative rut, that they're not, they're struggling to come up with stuff, probably because we're home more, we're cooking more. And I think we're all a little frazzled at the edges. So I feel like trying to get that creative spark in the kitchen. can be a little hard. So I could see it also being something they're like, what do you need me to cook and photograph? Let me know what you need, and I will be more than happy to do that if I don't have to decide 100% for myself. Like, give me guidance.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because I do all of that still to myself too. I do all the research. Like I'm figuring out, as I said, looking at my analytics, I'm figuring out what posts we need to have. And then I'm going into, other people's sites and recipes. And I mean, this is all advised in various places, seeing what other recipes are like that and what they tend to have. And I do all of that. And then I give them that information. I'm like, okay, I want whatever, a balsamic chicken breast. It should have these ingredients in it. It should feed this many people. I'd like the picture kind of from this angle. And so I'm giving them a lot of that already. And they then can take that information and go with that. So I think it's, not as difficult as coming up with it for your own site.
And I think that's great too. How you break that down is you're not just saying like, hey, I need a balsamic chicken post. You're doing that work. That's what in the past has really made you stand out from other bloggers, which is figuring out what to cover, how you want to cover it, and what that looks like. And then instead of going to the kitchen and doing it, you're getting someone else to do that aspects of it, which there's a lot of people out there that can take good photographs and can put together, the copy around an article. There's a lot of very talented people. So leaning on them to do that so you can focus on the things that the unique, like your superpower, bringing it to the blog I love that concept.
Oh, thank you. And I really, I think that I forget this sometimes. It's kind of how the Cookful started. My second site was in 2015, and I really wanted to hire bloggers. Like I wanted to, we were doing a lot of back then, like the link parties and various things, we get a sponsor on board and we do giveaways on all the sites, but nobody was making any money from that, and so I was like, part of that vision was, can I build a site that, people are going to come to, and then I can actually pay the bloggers that I'm working with instead of just giving them blenders to give away,
And I'm sure a lot of bloggers hate not having to do the SEO research and the analytics, because, that's every food blogger's favorite part of the job, I think, is doing the analytics research.
I love it. It's my favorite.
That's why it works so good. You get to do what you love and they get to do what they love, and it doesn't overlap necessarily.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a zone of genius thing. When I like taking pictures. I love cooking, but now I do so little of the cooking for cooking myself for the website. I have refound loving cooking in my kitchen. I enjoy doing that for my family again. I'm having fun. I've been reluctant. I've been trying to do like Instagram reels and different things like that. And as soon as I hear in my head this, like, I'm happy listening to my podcast and oh wait, I should do that Instagram thing. And I do this like, ugh. Then I'm like, okay, no, not today. We're not doing that today, because I need to enjoy this task that is really at the heart of why I started all this in the first place,
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. Just having transitioned from doing a lot of work for home cooks for the last 10 years, and then about a year and a half ago, trying to focus more on helping bloggers, which means I'm not putting out a bunch of recipe posts and really scaling back on that side. I've also a lot more excited to cook now, because I can just go in and cook something fun, and I don't have to be measuring the ingredients that I'm putting in, and making sure that the light's right and it's the right time of day. And do I, is my plating turns out to be garbage? Like, who cares? I'm doing it for fun, and my wife doesn't care. It's going to taste good. She'll be happy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like it's become a different endeavor. And like some of the other stuff that I was starting to get really frustrated about, where I was trying to cook during the day to have the nice lighting, and then that food has to just be warmed up in the microwave. And like my family is getting, we get all kinds of nice perks from the business, and everybody's happy, but it just feels a little bit better. And I've realized that as much as I like cooking, I love the stats way more, and I'd rather just be doing that professionally.
And I think that's something that I've talked to some people who said, like, well, how would you find a partner? And I feel like when things open up again, it's a lot easier. That like you and I met at a conference, and I know that you love analytics. Like, go to a conference and during the networking thing, say, what is your least favorite part about being a food blogger? And the ones that say the thing that you love, say like, hey, we should work together because you hate what I like to do. I don't really care about what you love to do. So that's figure out a way that we can kind of move forward as a partner.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great idea. And I think back to like when I talked about when Heather McCurdy started working for me, it was very copy editing. So we were getting all these posts from contributors for the Cookful. And then I was spending hours just reading through them and making sure the typos and the recipes were good. And it wasn't a good use of my time. Like like yeah, and it's not something I love. Whereas Heather loves that. She loves finding a typo. That's like the highlight of her day. Sorry if that's not exactly true, Heather, but like there's there's just super different personalities in these things, and figuring out which things you love and don't love, and who does love them instead, is really valuable.
One of the other things I've heard you talk a lot about is repurposing content. And I know you use that for some of your books and use it on your website. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach repurposing content to get the most out of it?
Yeah, so on the Cookful, as I said, we do a topic and we dive into it, and we turn each of those topics into a ebook. They're available for free to our newsletter subscribers. So it's like a lead magnet, but then we also have them up on Amazon. I have not put any of those into print because they're a little smaller. But then we did, I guess it was a year and a half ago now, released. Oh, I've got it right here. I'm going to show you because I love this. Oh, the all new chicken cookbook. It's 200 plus chicken recipes for the air fryer, electric pressure cooker, slow cooker, and more. And that is all recipes from Cook the Story and the Cookful, just packaged in a different way, right? And now I am doing the podcast, and we do a meal plan at the end of each podcast. And so I talk about the meal plan for the week, and then we do a blog post that has the links to all those things. And so and sort of what I was saying before about filling the gaps in the site when I realized we didn't have a lot of one pan stuff. So we did a whole bunch of one pan things, and now they can be worked into this meal plan, And then republishing a lot too. I don't know if that's considered repurposing, but that. And then I repurpose from one site to the other. So if something is never done well on Cook the Story, I'll give you an example. I have several zucchini recipes on Cook the Story that have just never taken off. And so then I start thinking, okay, these are never going to do anything over here. But we're going to do a topic on the Cookful on zucchini. Then I'm going to move those over to there, or leave them where they are, but just know they're not competing really at this point. I have the picture already done. The recipe is done. Change up the wording a little bit, do the blog post. And then hopefully with that topic concept where we're doing 15 or 20 recipes on one theme and they're interlinked and everything, then maybe zucchini will have a shot on that site.
It makes sense. And people always talk about, like, if you have a top ranking post on Google, like, don't change the images, don't change anything, because like, even if you're not really changing much, it's giving Google a chance to like reevaluate it, and it could drop you down. So I could see taking one that's not taking off and then moving it elsewhere and giving Google a chance to reevaluate it, and maybe it will take off a little bit over there.
Yeah. And I think it has worked. I feel, or maybe that particular post doesn't ever do well, but it's like one of these supporters. Like, I'm trying to think of there's some great, the stuffed peppers was one of the first series we did. I had some stuffed peppers recipes on Cook the Story, and then I repurposed them onto the Cookful as part of this series. None of those have ever taken off, but my classic stuffed peppers and whether you should blanch your peppers first, those two have done really, really well. And I think it's because there's so much stuffed pepper content on the site that algorithm recognize expertise. And if those had been left out, that might not have happened, Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. It's supporting some of your other posts and giving you that, like, I am an expert in this situation, in this, on this topic, because I have a lot of information out there about it.
Right, exactly.
For your book, is that a self-published book or a traditionally published book?
It's self-published. Yeah, we did. It is now. You can get it print on demand from Amazon, but for some reason, Amazon wants us to charge $39.99 for it. I have it like that. It just is forced. So we also sell it for a much smaller profit, $27.99 on, and then I buy those and send them out. So that's not automated, but that was a much cheaper, more reasonable way to do it. Yeah.
What printer did you go with for the ones that you send out yourself?
So those are from Ingram now.
Oh, Ingram, great.
Yeah.
I've done Ingram and Amazon KDP, so that's why I was curious
Yeah.
which worked for you. So, yeah, they both have their benefits and both have their struggles. I feel like.
Yeah, I guess I'm using both, I guess is what that means, right? Because I have the Amazon KDP thing happening, and then I also have the Ingram from home part happening.
How long did it take you to put the book together?
Not very long, which drove my team crazy. So it was kind of this like long-term project that we started maybe in like March of that year. And halfway through, I was like, wait a minute, everybody's going to be getting air fryers and Instant Pots for Christmas. We need this out by Thanksgiving. And so suddenly, like, it was this mad rush. It was all we did for a few months. In retrospect, not the greatest idea, because I think that the book is great. I'm really happy with the book, but we didn't really end up with the time to promote it for Thanksgiving and Christmas. You know, like, it was I think it probably would have been better to try to have it out the next year. And that would have been this Christmas. So, you know, lots of people got air fryers and Instant Pots this year too. And
there's definitely the right thought, because we did, I want to say 30% of our sales in November, December for our books every year. It's just a lot of people are getting things. And like you said, everyone's getting equipment as well. So you get the January bump as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I think giving it a little more time would have been a better idea.
Yeah, the marketing out of the gate is huge, especially for long-term sales. Because if you, like anything else, if you bump it up enough, Amazon says, oh, I can make money by promoting this. So they start promoting it internally, and that helps a lot, getting new clients coming in.
I don't know very much about this. This is not my strength. Maybe I should take your course.
But that's a good reminder, is this is not your strength. You don't know much about it. You put out a book that was successful and that has made you a published author that I'm sure has helped open up a few doors despite it not being your expertise. So if someone's nervous about it, dive in and do it, because you can get it done.
I'll say it has not sold successfully. And I think that is, I think, me, because I'm not great at social media. We're trying newsletter stuff. It's just not what I'm great at. But I do feel like it has opened doors, and that like published author with the nice copy. And I feel like it has done things that I didn't expect it to do. You know, I've been on a lot of like morning shows and TV stuff talking about things. I feel like a lot of that has come from that I have the book, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I always emphasize, that even if you don't sell that many copies, like being a published author gives you a lot more authority than someone that's not published. Sally Eckes refers to it as like the best business card that you can have, that it establishes you and sets you apart from other people out there.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And it's even in like my bio on the site and stuff. When people come to the site, they're seeing, oh, she's a published author. Oh, she's done this and that. Oh, and I think all of that builds. I mean, like what I just said, I've been on these TV programs and things we're about to do with the site redesign we're doing soon, that like as seen on ABC, as seen on like that kind of stuff, which I think came from the cookbook. And all of that is what's going to make people add me to their bookmark or subscribe to the newsletter, or like all of that is just flows from that place, I think.
Did you have to go out looking for those types of TV opportunities, or did they come and find you?
Oh, I went looking. I actually hired a PR firm. When was that? Maybe October. I was listening to, so I had tried hiring PR companies before, and they would say things to me like, well, we're going to start you off with a good Facebook page. I'm like, I have that. And I don't, that's not what I'm looking for. And then I was listening to Pat Flynn's passive income podcast, which is wonderful, and everybody should be listening to that also. And he had his publicist on, Brittany Lynn, talking about how what she does is she gets people on podcasts and she gets them mentioned in online things, and it's wonderful for online entrepreneurs. And I was listening and like paused it mid listen to go sign up for, like, I'm like, please accept me as a client. So they did that. But I think that what they've been telling me is what sells me to a lot of this stuff is that it's not just a website. There's the podcast and there's the cookbooks and it sounds reputable. When they introduced me it feels weird, but like they say, author of over 30 cookbooks because I have all those ebooks on the Cookful, like all those things just make it all sound so much better.
You're kind of a big deal, Christine. It's a media mogul.
Yeah, media mogul. That's hilarious.
I know when you were approaching launching your blog, when you were doing the Cookful, you put a lot of work in to make sure that you wouldn't, kind of be in the hamster wheel of having to put out content every week and create content every week. You tried to get things set up with a good plan and approaching it with a strategy, so you had stuff ahead of time. What did you do to kind of make that successful, and how can some of us that get stuck behind in our work kind of start building out a little bit of a content buffer?
Yeah, well, okay, so I have a few things to say about that. I'm not sure people's advice about whether you should start a second website or not is kind of here or there. Some people say just stick with the one you have and do more on there. And other people think it's great to start more websites. I felt like what I wanted to do with the Cookful was very different from what I was doing on Cook the Story. So it made sense to me to start something new. But what I didn't want, because I'd started Cook the Story as this hobby blog and people knew that, I didn't really want it to look like that again. And I wanted my current readers, friends, family, anybody who comes to the site to really see like a legitimate presence there. And so the Cookful, when we launched it, we had 4 of those topics that I was talking about already up. Like launch day, there was, I think, 80 recipes on the site. And we had 2 months of stuff ready to go kind of on autopilot. And that is actually what I learned when I hired that babysitter that year, was the same. It was the same thing. She was editing the pictures, putting together the blog posts, and I was cooking all day. And what we did was we buffered and had all of this content on autopilot. None of it was sponsored. Remember, that's what I was talking about. So that then I could drop in the sponsored content in between and continue to stay ahead by doing like a couple of recipes of my own. So it is, I would say, if it's something that you want to do, that sort of buffer sort of thing, so you're not always scrambling, it is possibly taking a couple weeks and just doing a whole bunch of content that you can then have already scheduled and go. And then you just have to do a little bit all the time to stay ahead in that way, Yeah,
do all the heavy lifting up front, and then you can do the small, more timely things over time to continue being timely with your blog. But you're not kind of like, what am I going to do next week that for my big post that has to come out in 6 days?
Yeah. And, yes, so it definitely is that. And I feel like doing that, both on Cook the Story and the Cookful now, that we're ahead like that, it has really freed up a lot of my creative mental space, that I'm not in like panic is a bit too strong of a word, but that, crunch time feeling, that doesn't really happen. We're working on things for 3 months out. And if there's a delay, if one of my kids is sick or I'm sick or something happens, it doesn't really impact the stress level. And that opens up my mind to be able to come up with a podcast or do a cookbook or like any of the other endeavors that I want to do,
One of the things that when I started planning out a little bit more in the future, that I found an unintended benefit was being able to kind of batch my work in unusual ways. That I'd be doing like a sous vide chicken breast, and like as food bloggers, we know you don't just take a picture of like a chicken breast sitting on a plate. So I'd be like, well, I need to come up with sides. I need to come up with stuff around it, and be like, well, I haven't done like a sous vide green beans recipe yet. So why don't I do that? And I'll do a sous vide infusion. And so that's the drink in the back and the beans on the side. So I have a nice chicken photograph, but then I can turn it. I can take some good photographs of the beans and then take some photographs of the infused drink. And now when I put those out, I just have to write them up. I don't have to then remake them and rephotograph them, and it would eliminate all that extra work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The batching is amazing. I know, like when I do one of those big cook days, if I have, say I'm doing like 15 recipes over the course of a week or something, I put them in that kind of way. And then you start seeing like, oh wait, I need a dressing for that salad. I'll also do that. And you can, and then the ingredients, like sort of, I don't worry too much about saving money on ingredients because everything has to look nice and all of that. But there are a lot of things where you can, okay, we're doing a bunch of Mexican stuff. So that's going to be tomatoes, the cilantro garnish. I'm buying one time instead of 5 times, and like all of that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I didn't think about the cost savings, but that does make sense, that especially for some of those more specialty ingredients. And I figure most food bloggers are like me with a fridge full of miscellaneous condiments and stuff like that we've only used a handful of times for a recipe. So batching them around a cuisine and stuff could be a good way to kind of get through all of them in a respectable amount of time.
Yeah, that, and then like what you said about batching, photo edits, you know, if you edit 20 pictures at once, you can start making macros for that. There's things that you can do. And once you're in the program, you're just sort of on autopilot, and it goes much more quickly than that. Like, okay, I'm going to fire up Photoshop. Okay, and like you're doing everything less times. That really, really helps.
I've been doing that with my podcasts, and I record intros to this that is basically just like a sentence about what's coming up, and then, coming up next on Makin Bacon. And that's like a 20-minute process to do that, but 18 minutes of that is opening up the thing, getting my mic out, setting all that up. So if I do like 10 of them, it takes me like 25 minutes instead of 20 minutes to do one. And it's just like super easy and super convenient.
It's so true. And I think that there are other perks that come from batching that you don't realize. So as you were saying that, I was realizing that I batch do the meal plans for my podcast. There's one at the end of each show. And because I kind of do them, I'll do like 3 or 4 shows at a time, just because I have all my sites open and I'm thinking about balancing things, and it just makes sense to do it that way. But I think what it also helps me do is not be repetitive. Like I know exactly what was on the meal plan. Like it's right here for last week and this week and the next week. And I'm doing it all at once. And I can start, okay, wait, we haven't done a lot of fish lately. We haven't done a lot of, and that it helps for those. And I wouldn't have expected that. That's not why I'm doing it that way. So I think there's a lot of different, seeing something from a little bit more above that happens when you are batching.
I think that's a great point. When I was doing my last batch of intros, I realized I said I forget what the phrase was, something that I don't say very often. It's not like a catchphrase. And I was like, I just said this in the last 2 intros. And if those were a week apart, I never would have remembered that I said exploring this or something like that. But it was just like very apparent that I'm just repeating myself right now. And so I went back in and mixed it up. So I had a little more variety. And like you're saying, make sure that you're not getting in one of those ruts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps for all kinds of things. I mean, I will say though, I don't know if it comes naturally to people to work in that way. It wasn't natural for me at all at first. But practice, because I was trying so hard to not have all that back-to-back sponsored content, and I had this reason and this goal, and I had to do it in this way, it was internally forced on me. And now I've realized that it's better, but it wasn't easy at first. It definitely wasn't easy to not just be going week to week and like a to-do list of all the tasks, and instead big clump task. It takes a little practice.
Yeah, you definitely have a little bit of a mindset shift to kind of get yourself in that flow. But I agree that it's something that makes me much more efficient than doing anything one-off.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, Christine, I appreciate you coming on, sharing so much of your expertise. If the listeners want to get more from you, they can head to thecookful.com or cookthestory.com, or on social media at thecookful or Cook the Story. Is that correct?
Yeah, Cook the Story is more me, but I have stuff on the Cookful too.
Awesome. Well, Christine, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise, and it was great seeing you again. Hopefully we will meet up at a conference this year sometime near the end of the year, hopefully.
I hope so. Thanks for having me, Jason. This has been really great.
And remember, you can join us live every Thursday when we record these episodes. You can ask the guest questions, talk to the other bloggers in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So join us Thursdays at makethatbacon.com/live, or search for Makin Bacon on your favorite podcast platform. This has been Makin Bacon, all about helping serve your fans, grow your income, and get the most out of your blog. Until next time, I'm Jason Logston. See you all next Thursday.